Setting up passwords for users in Knack can be quite challenging, especially as there's no native way of actually giving the user the password without disclosing it. Now, quite often you can use the self-registration in Knack, which allows the user to sign up and then sign straight in. But if you need to connect that user to a client or a company or a project, often that connection needs to be done in the back end by an admin user, and then you send out a link so they can actually sign in. Now, often that link you send will include the password, which isn't particularly high security. So in this video, using a little bit of CSS that was passed on to me by my good friend Ian Crow from Knack Pros, it enables you to utilize Knack's built-in password reset process. So not only can you use this to sign up new users, but if someone forgets their password, with a simple button press, you can send them a link and they can reset their password and then sign into the application. I'll walk you through the setup. I'm using my classic Clips application. I have a list of clients which are former prime ministers. I'm really just going to concentrate on Boris Johnson, David Cameron, and Edward Heath. So a very simple table of clients, and when you go into a client, you have the client information at the top, and then beneath that I have customers that are associated to this client. So for instance, I have John Doe, and then beneath that I have pets which are associated to the client. So Boris Johnson here, he has one customer connected to him and 4 pets: Trevor, Emma, Diamond, and Cassie. In the builder, I obviously have a client table, and you can see the records here. Coming down to the accounts object, I have 2 records, one for myself and one for John Doe. And you can see that John Doe is connected to the client via this connection. Changing it to the fields view, this is probably a subject for a whole separate video, but I've added the connection to the client at the accounts level. So if I scroll down, you can see here I'm on the accounts page, and this connection to the client is at the accounts level. Very quickly, the reason that I do that is that if someone changes their user role between customer or sales or finance, you don't have to worry about moving the information between user roles. So what I would call custom user fields, I always add at the accounts level. So address, phone number, and I've got a date time here for the credentials being sent. So if I look at the other roles, developer, I've just got the standard user roles for every other role. So admin, manager, finance, sales, and customer. Personally, I never add additional custom fields. I always add them at the accounts level. So if I was to change the connection here and say instead of Boris Johnson, John Doe was connected to David Cameron, if I come back to my live app and go back to my clients, go back into Boris Johnson, I now have no customers connected here. But if I go back and go into David Cameron, John Doe has now moved to obviously be a customer associated with David Cameron. So as I mentioned in the introduction, it's often very difficult to have someone self-register and make that connection between their account and your customers. In the live app, I have a page set up here called Customer Accounts, and this is just listing a table of all records associated to customers. And from here, I can add another account, and I can select which client they're connected to, add in their name, email, phone, and address, and then submit this form. That will then create me a new record in my accounts object, but without a password. So the password field will be blank. So for example, here, I'm going to connect David Cameron to Jane Doe, add in a fake email address and a phone number and submit. Then coming back to my accounts object, I can see Jane has been added here, connected to David Cameron, and the account is active. My user role is customer, but I don't have a password selected. So I don't have to worry about setting that up when I add the record. In the pages section, this is my table of customer accounts, and this is the link to add a new account. So this form actually inserts a new account record. It's not inserting a customer user role, it's inserting an account. And because I have my client connection at this level, I can add my client to the table, to the form, and obviously my other fields. Now, the way this is set up is that if I go into the actions and rules, I have a record action here, which sets the user role to customer and sets the user status to active. But I don't have to worry about setting up a password. As you'll see in the live application, I have a link here which enables me to send the password to the user. Now, this isn't actually sending a password, it's sending the password reset link. So on my pages, if I click on this link, it will take me to a separate page, which is a modal pop-up with two views. The first view is just showing the account information. So I've got the name, the email on which client they're connecting to. And then the form beneath is a form that once it submits, it sends an email to that particular email address for that user with a pre-formatted email showing the link for them to use to set or reset their password. And then also a link here for them to be able to redirect back to the login page. In this particular application, I use what I call a homepage redirect, and I'll put a link in the description for the video I did on this a couple of years ago. But I find this a really popular way of redirecting people to the correct page and only having one URL for your whole application. So I won't go into too much detail here, but this is a blank page which has a number of rules on it. And depending on what your user role contains, it redirects you to a specific page. So if I scroll down a bit further, we can see here that on page rule 5, if your user role contains customer, we're going to redirect you to the customer portal. In my page structure, I obviously have a customer portal login. And if I look at the security here, you can only get to this page or see the page if you have a customer user role. Going into the details of the page, it has two components, the client details at the top, and then beneath that, a list of pets. Now, this list of pets, if I look at the data source, is a list of pet records connected to the same client, connected to the logged in account. So it will only show pet records for the client that I'm connected to. If I look at my client details, this is showing the client record connected to the logged in account. So effectively, the client that the user who's logging in is connected to. I'm just coming back to my accounts object. I'm going to delete this record for Jane Doe just to simplify things. So I now only have John Doe, who is the only record I have who has a customer user role. Obviously, I'm up here with the admin and the developer. Back to the customer accounts page. I'm going to click on send. It has John Doe's details here, just some text saying that when I submit this, it will send a password reset link to this email address. Submit the form. That records the date and time and who sent the credentials to the customer. The email then comes through with the link to reset or set my password and then my login. So I've clicked on the link and it's taken me to this page which says set or reset your password. Please enter your email address below and you'll receive an automated email link to set or reset your password. Obviously, just to check your spam folder. Add my email address and click submit. And then I'm going to go back to the customer portal. I received the email from Knack with the reset link. This page has been changed to say set or reset your password. Add my new password and click submit. And now I can go back to the customer portal, fill in the credentials and sign in. And I'll be showing the record for David Cameron with his related pets, Autumn, Bailey, Millie and Molly. Coming back to the full version of the application, so not the portal, you can obviously see in the clients table, if I go to David Cameron, I have one customer, John Doe, and then my pets, Autumn, Bailey, Millie and Molly. To prove that this works pretty seamlessly, if I come into the client and change it from David Cameron to Boris Johnson and submit, going back to my clients, Boris Johnson now will have a connection to John Doe, and the pets are Trevor, Emma, Diamond, and Cassie. I come back to the customer portal and I'm just going to reload my page. You can now see that I've switched over and I'm connected to Boris Johnson and see his pets instead. So hopefully that walkthrough brought it to life for you. Now we're jumping to actually how you get this done. On the customer accounts table, we have a form, which is a form that updates the account. And all that happens when you submit that is it sends the email, which I mentioned earlier, to the customer. And this link here is the password reset link. And this particular link you can obtain fairly easily by logging out and following the forgot password link. So if I come back to my live app and log out, I need to make sure that I'm logging into my home page. So I'm going to click on the link here to copy that address, paste that into my URL, because this is the page that everyone logs in at. And then I'm going to right click on the forgot password and say copy link address. Now, if someone has forgotten their password, they would normally simply click on this link and it would take them to this page, which is why we're saying set or reset your password. So once again, back inside the builder, inside the customer accounts page, we were following this link here. So this is a form which has a form to update the account and a view here for the account details. So this form, I'm only using it so that I have the ability to submit it and therefore send an email. It also has a couple of action rules. One is to set the date and time for when the credentials were sent, and also who actually sent the credentials, which is a connection to the accounts object. I'll circle back to that in a moment. Coming back a couple of levels, I actually just want to explain the email a little bit more. So when this form is submitted, it sends the email to the email field from the accounts object. The subject just says set or reset password. And then we're using the variable of the person's name from the accounts object. And then this is just a hyperlink. If I look at the edit on here, you can see that this is going to the Knack password forgot link, which we copied a moment ago. So we're just giving the person the link to be able to set or reset their password. This then here is just a link to my homepage or the customer portal page, depending on where you're getting people to log in. Now, the magic sauce to how this all actually works and how you can utilize the password reset feature is from the code, which was shared with me probably about 18 months ago by Ian Crow from Knack Pros. So shout out to Ian for supplying this. I'll put a link in the description so you can pick this off my website. There isn't anything you need to change. It effectively resets the password page and changes it so that you can have whatever content you wish here. So this is the customized text. Instead of it saying reset your password, we're changing it so people can either set or reset their password as it shows here. So once again, coming back to my live app, I can simply now just click on the form, press submit, and that will then push the email to the user so they can walk through the process of setting up their own password or resetting their password. Capturing when that happened and who did it is quite useful. And jumping back to the accounts object, there's two fields here, a credentials date time field, which is set up to your preferred date format with no date and no time, because that record rule will push that in. And then this is a connection actually to itself. So this is a connection to the accounts object. So it's connecting the accounts object to itself so we can capture who actually pressed the button and sent out the credentials. So once again, back to the customer's account, this is the form and this is the form we were just looking at. So it's these action rules here. That's just setting the date sent to the current time and the credentials sent to the logged in account. There's obviously many different ways that you could build this with your accounts object, but in this particular setup, just for convenience, the table here, it's just showing the account records, and I filtered it to just show where the user role is set to customer. So that means I could come back a level here and actually add in which client this person's connected to. Come back and do a refresh, and I can now see they're connected to Boris Johnson. Obviously, on my edit form, I have the client here. So if I wish to change that to Edward Heath and submit, I'm now changing which records the person will see on the portal. So coming back to the customer portal, if I just refresh this page, you'll now see I'm connected to Edward Heath and I'm seeing the pets associated to that record. If I come back to the main app and go to clients, come to Edward Heath, scroll down, you can see that John Doe now sits here as one of the customers. I hope you found the video of interest and of use. It's quite a lot of content to cover. It's taken a little bit of time to go through and record, and I appreciate it's quite a complex process. If you do have any questions or queries, please do put them in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up, encourages me to keep going, and I'll catch up with you on the next one.